On today's podcast, we're joined by the one and only Sass Metcalf, who's president of creative at Kobalt Music Publishing. It was a really interesting conversation. We got into many of the factors that go into her decisions of what to sign and not to sign with regards to songwriters and producers today, where she's finding her talent, how to get on her radar as a songwriter, and how Kobalt develops artists' careers via music publishing, even those without recording contracts. Another aspect that I thought was so interesting is that we discussed the rise of producers like Benny Blanco and people like Andrew Watt becoming recording artists themselves. Also, what makes Kobalt the best choice for songwriters to sign with, and where she sees music publishing going over the next 3 to 5 years. It was a fascinating discussion that I don't think you're going to want to miss. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we're with Sass Metcalf, President of Global Creative at Kobalt Music Publishing, where we discuss what specific factors go into her decisions to sign and not to sign a songwriter or artist today, where she's finding talent, and how to get on her radar as a songwriter or artist. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey Insiders, are you looking to take your music career to the next level? Then you need to know about the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 28 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Monthly, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in print, PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit them now at musicregistry.com and receive a 10% discount by using coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured interview is with the one and only Sass Metcalf. Sass is the president of creative at Kobalt Music Publishing. They are one of the leading music publishing companies in the world today, and it was a really fascinating conversation. This is somebody who's on the front lines of creativity with songwriters, with artists, and with publishers in terms of developing talent. She has a track record that you will learn speaks for itself. It was a really interesting insight into how those kinds of decisions at that level are made in terms of the writers and the people that she chooses to work.
Yeah, I thought one of the interesting things too was the rise of producers becoming recording artists. I believe she talked about Benny Blanco, some of the other, Andrew Watt. And so I think this is going to be very, very interesting conversation for our insiders to check out.
Absolutely. It was a really interesting conversation. And she's somebody who, has grown up with music, grown up in the music industry, but is operating at the leading levels today. So I think our listeners are really going to find a lot of great insight and value for this conversation.
Definitely. Insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Sass Metcalf.
Sass, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
It's great to see you, Ritch. Nice to be here.
It's great to see you as well. I'm so glad that we're all back here at Muse Expo. It's been 3 years since 2019.
Wow, pandemic over, life continues on.
Absolutely. I always like to begin these conversations with a question to each of our guests, especially someone with as rich and storied of a background in the business as you have, which is, when in your life did you know that the music business was going to be your professional career path?
Probably not that early on, to be honest with you, because I didn't even know you could have a music business career. But as soon as I sort of moved to London, was out in the world, seeing bands, loving music, which I'd always had loved, and was a huge fan of lots of bands in the 70s where I grew up as a teenager. So probably later, more near my age 20, really, I was like, I could do this. I have a lot to offer. And I'm female, and I'm going to go for it. So that's what I did.
Okay, and you did, absolutely.
You know, you're president for Global Creative for Kobalt Music, and I was wondering if you can speak about what you look for both creatively and non-creatively when looking to sign a songwriter or artist to a publishing deal at Kobalt.
Well, creatively, obviously, it's all about the songs. So we definitely listen to the songs and feel like, you know, you've got to make sure that somebody has, you know, a wealth of material, that they are contributing most of it, if not, you know, with a songwriter, whether they're a top liner or whether they're a track person or producer orientated. So really there's lots of dimensions that we look for, and obviously it's a bit of a jigsaw. We look at our roster and think, where do we need to strengthen up? Which genres do we need to sort of put our weight upon? And so creatively it's all about the song. And then, you know, from the other side, I really feel like you've got to have someone who really is ambitious, who really wants to fulfill their dreams, that wants to work hard, and at the end of the day, you know, is prepared to go in rooms with people and really collaborate and work in a team environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think those things are so important when you speak about that, because I've heard publishers who, they don't use names, but they've said, we've come across very talented people that we have chosen not to get into business with for precisely the reasons that you were articulating, because they said the bottom line was we wanted it more than they did.
Yeah, exactly. That is something we definitely we are quite perceptive to. You know, some people think it's a lot easier than it is, and they have to have drive and ambition. Ambition is a huge word, and there is some luck, obviously. You know, we all know of great songwriters and really great songs that probably haven't had, you know, the success they deserve, but mostly I think it is down to the individual to really, and we're there as a team to help provide them with all the tools and facilities to help them navigate through the waters to success.
Absolutely. Today, we live in such a different world as far as access to music. We have so much more of it. Where are you finding your talent today, Sass? Is it through the usual trusted industry sources? Is it through the marketplace, forums? Where are you discovering talent?
Lots of different places, actually. Relationships. I've been doing it for many years, so I know a lot of people that will tip me off or, you know, send me an email. My team are fantastic. They you know, the global team, they're finding things through their relationships. We're finding things that are online through social media as well. You know, obviously TikTok is a huge thing these days. And to be honest, you know, there are some good songwriters that appear on there. You just have to dig deep a bit and make sure that there's just not one song, because that's a moment in time. Whereas, you know, we want to sign things that have careers and can repeat it, you know, if possible. So I think lawyers, nothing's changed. I mean, obviously I'm talking songwriters here, but obviously we're also looking at a lot of bands. So, you know, you have to go out and see them, and really it is about, you know, who's building an audience out there and who the fans are, you know, gravitating towards. So, you know, that's important as well, is the live element from the bands. And you know, it's not always coming to you with a link. Sometimes you have to go and see them.
No, exactly. So you are finding songwriters who have enough material from TikTok. I mean, that has been, you mentioned that.
Yeah, we actually have. And I mean, recently we've signed a deal. I mean, if we feel that they're really talented and that they have written most of the song, or, you know, then we can put them with our other writer-producers and build out their catalogue over time. But I mean, it's usually on a development basis, because they very rarely have a wealth of material that early in their careers. But if we believe in them and we think they're talented, yeah, we're doing that as well.
Does Kobalt sign acts to the company prior to signing them to a record deal if you believe in them enough?
Oh, yes. Definitely, because I do feel that publishing is a really great development arm for the music business, and you know, it's the best kept secret. Really, it's the real home where you can really, basically, work with them over time to get their songs together and put them with the right people. And yes, we do that.
Any examples of any of your acts or any of the?
Well, Oh God, you caught me. There's so many. The people that we've signed before
prior to them
companies.
getting, yeah.
Well, I mean, in the UK, when I was back in the UK, I remember doing Jake Bugger very early and putting his songs together with Ian Archer, and then he went on to have a big record. There are a number of people that we do that. We even have done that with writer-producers. Andrew Watt I signed really early, and now he's biggest producer in the world, but he literally came to me with a lot of ambition and some great songs very early on. So I feel like we're doing it. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they have a distribution deal or something, so they are building, they're putting songs out and building their careers at the same time, but not necessarily signed to a major, or not signed, sealed, delivered. They're putting music out, but
right.
they're in a position where they can make changes.
Absolutely. You mentioned Andrew Watt, and he is one of the biggest and most successful producers today. Are you finding, Sass, I mean, you've been in this a long time, so you have a point of view and a level of experience that a lot of other people don't have, which is that over time, have you seen more producers wanting to become recording artists of their own, making records? I think of like Mark Ronson. Uptown
Yes.
Funk was part of his record, not
Yeah,
Bruno.
no, that's true. Benny Blanco. Yeah,
Benny Blanco, your own Andrew Watt. I mean,
yes, I mean, I do. I don't think it's everywhere, but and obviously we encourage some younger producers if they are, also have artist ambitions. I think it's healthy that they put out their own material. It's a way of them exercising that muscle, which I feel is we should encourage. I think it's great, and that we are living in the world of features, so there's absolutely no reason why they can't make records with the people that they with other artists that they work with individually, or I think it makes interesting records.
Absolutely. What makes Kobalt for a writer that is interested, and you find yourself on the front lines of this, who's interested in a publishing deal and you're interested in them, what makes Kobalt the unique choice for songwriters versus your competitors in the music publishing space?
Well, we always pride ourselves on doing a great job from the collection point of view. I think we were definitely the first to do deals where people own their own copyrights. So we were ambitious and made sure that they were collecting their money faster, direct with all the societies rather than holding the money in the territories. So there was that element of what we were doing early on was very important. When I was talking to artists and songwriters early on, it was very different. Nobody had a somewhat administration type deal. They were locked in. They had MDRCs. They had to deliver a certain amount of songs. We were doing term deals so that they delivered all the songs in the term. So the structure of our deals is very different. I mean, over time we've evolved. So we're doing, more long-term deals. But the other thing is, I think, building out the team. I always wanted to have a creative element, a creative team that was global from day one. So I always felt that just signing things in territories and not sharing your writers globally wasn't the way to go. I feel if somebody signs to a company and signs a worldwide deal, they deserve a worldwide service. So they know everybody on our team. We have offices around the world. So you sign to Kobalt and obviously you have your deal sponsor, the person that brings you in, the person that totally believes, but the writers have access to all of the team, and the team talk regularly. So it's one roster feel, one bottom line. So they don't feel like, I'm signed in LA and no one even knows who I am in London. Right. It's that's not how we do it, and I think that's very attractive to the writers. I think they love having a nice big team to work with. So if they fly to London, they've got a great team there that helps them with collabs and song pitching, or Germany or Sweden. So it's really nice. They feel they have a family.
That's great. That's great.
Absolutely. Sass, I wanted to ask you, this is a new trend that we're seeing in the industry in the last few years. Do you find that a lot of your artist signings are using label artist services versus being signed to a traditional label today?
I would say mixed. I think it's definitely become more of a trend because obviously we owned AWOL at one point.
Right.
So I was definitely, encouraging and working with AWOL, and, it's an incredible service, and people have really good managers and around them that can help put the marketing plans and the vision. I think it really works very well. Depending on the genre of music as well, I think in the sort of mainstream pop, they tend to be more major oriented, go to majors. But there's a number of artists that have done very well on the distribution platforms, and I believe they are very much the future.
Oh, absolutely. As more and more independent artists get this and build careers, it's almost like we are redefining what it means to be successful.
Exactly.
Because we're finding a lot of artists that are successful, but that they're not on People magazine. They're not the stars in that sense. Yeah.
Coming from a publishing angle, obviously we want to feel that they have a career. It's not about having one hit for us. We want to work with talented people over a period of time, so we're building up a valuable catalogue for them.
Precisely. Sass, let's say you've just signed a brand new songwriter into Kobalt. Take us through the journey in terms of what happens next for them in the Kobalt ecosystem. Is it setting up co-writing sessions? Yeah. Is it introductions to other producers, your other territories? What happens when a new person comes into your system?
Even before we've signed them, they've met quite a few people at the company. They've probably met our sync team. Well, more than likely they've met our sync team. They'll come in and meet other members of the team, especially in LA, or if they're signed in London, so they know a number of people in the creative team already. Then we'll have brainstorming meetings, come up with if they are an artist wanting to work themselves with better producers. Then we'll put them in different rooms and we'll arrange their trips for them. So it's very hands-on. We do a lot of collaborations, hundreds a week. So, that's what the team spend a lot of time doing. And and then obviously we're navigating where they're going with it. Is this working? They find their people. They find the ones that work. We always tell them not everything works, but give it a go. Right. See how, but most of the time, just putting young songwriters in a professional environment, they step up to it.
That's great. That's great to know.
Sass, what do you find are the most common requests or areas that you find songwriters or artists asking you to plug them into? Is it film and TV? Is it more cuts? Does it vary? What do you find?
It does vary, obviously, with more musician type writers, that have ambitions to do film scoring or write bespoke for TV. We can, that will be known early if they're that way inclined, so they'll meet the sync team, and their job is to basically introduce them to different studios, different directors. We always ask them who their favorite directors are, who their where their passion is, and try and open some doors for them to have their own relationships and build up their basically just it's contacts, and get the music to the right people. I mean, now there are times where we can, ask them to write something for a specific show or a specific. I mean, there's no, you can't guarantee it, but I think our job is to open doors and facilitate just help them on their journey. So yeah, we do obviously a lot of that if they want that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's amazing.
Do you feel, you touched on this before, and I'd like to follow up on it, which is that, do you feel today, Sass, as somebody who's the president of Global Creative at a major publisher, that publishers today are doing more development of artists in the creative space than they were before? There was a period where a lot of publishers wouldn't touch artists especially, unless they had a record deal, unless there was an income source. What are you seeing now on the landscape in 2022?
No, I think it's very much changed. Yes, I do feel you're right. In the early days, it was sort of what's signed to the majors, let's look at that. But let's see what that is. Whether it's usually very competitive. So I really like to. I mean, I know the team. I encourage the whole team to sign what they love, and what they feel comfortable, who they feel comfortable working with. I mean, there's always deals. There's many different types of deals out there. There's obviously the hot ones. There's obviously the ones no one knows about. But just because no one knows about it doesn't mean it's not good. So I'm like, if no one knows about it, But good things float to the top pretty quickly, and so therefore, they're usually quite competitive these days. But your question was, do we? Yeah, we definitely like to develop the artists if possible. And I mean, I do believe that just having a big hit on TikTok, they still need developing for a whole wealth of other songs. They don't normally have a lot of. It's a marketing tool, and they've hit something, but they need the follow up. They need to continue on their journey.
Hey Insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured interview. Stay tuned because we've got so much more value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. Hey Ritch, you're the founder, CEO, legend of Music Business Registry. Tell us what the Music Business Registry is all about.
Well, what it's about, Eric, is it's a company that is designed to provide the most accurate and up-to-date contact information for the music business. So if someone is looking to reach the A&R community, if someone is looking to reach music publishers, if someone needs to reach artist managers, if someone needs to reach music attorneys, if someone's looking to place their music into film and television and needs to reach all the music supervisors, that's the contact information that we provide. We've been doing it for 28 years. We're sort of the industry standard, if you will, for the music business and have been serving them since 1992. So that's what we do.
Amazing. So if I wanted to find out, let's say A&R people from Warner Brothers, let's say, I can just go in there and find that in the A&R registry?
Absolutely. You'll find all of the Warner Brothers in there. You'll find the Warner Brothers in LA, Warner Brothers in New York, Warner Brothers in Nashville, Warner Brothers in London, Warner Brothers, probably in Australia as well. So those are the main territories that we cover.
Amazing. And we're offering all of our insiders right now that are listening, if you visit musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount off your first order. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. Anything else you want to say, Ritch?
Well, when you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com. Yeah, it's like you had said before, you gave us the criteria of signing a songwriter to a publishing deal. You want to see that they have a body of work behind them, even if they're not signed. Like, it's not just about one song, because otherwise, no amount of time or money, time, but you've got to have something to work with. You bring up an interesting point. I remember this conversation with somebody at Columbia who said this was the problem. It was a good problem because it was the biggest record of all time, but that they ran into with Lil Nas X. That literally was the first thing he ever did.
Yeah.
And it was a freak thing that it became the biggest record of all time, but they ran into the same problem. And no amount of money could force that, get more material, get it to... You couldn't manufacture that out of thin air.
No.
And they talked, that was the problem in the artist development process of his career.
I think, you know that when you're going in with someone with one hit, and obviously you're signing them because you believe that they've got more. It's just a matter of time and developing and using the great songwriters and producers that you have, or maybe to help, and there's some wonderful songs out there. So I think it's really learning what direction they want to be in, where they're going, and putting the right people around them to facilitate that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, Sass, given the tremendous value of many of the classic songwriter catalogs being sold in the last couple of years, which has been an ongoing trend in the last couple of them, can you speak to the value of a songwriter artist holding on to their own publishing, being that Kobalt is one of the leading, publishing administration, companies of copyrights?
Well, I think the value is, you have to have, value in your songs. So therefore, I think it's fine if people want to sell. I mean, a lot of people these days are selling sort of chunks of their songs and then building up their catalogs again, maybe for another resale later on. So it doesn't mean they're giving up. It just means they're selling those songs and they're still writing, still very busy and building up their next catalog. I think, it's the way of the world now. People have found the value of music. The city have found the value of music. The money people have found the value of music, which probably it's always been there, but now with streaming, they're beginning to actually be able to crunch the numbers and see it for real. And I think it's fine. I mean, if that's what people want, I understand that. When people if they're older and they've got a catalogue, why not? Because who's going to look after it when they're gone? Who's going to It's. I think if that's what they want to do, then great. But I think you can. I do think you need to build it, and make it valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to your point, traditionally in the past, people did leave their catalogs to their children or to their estates, if you will. This idea of, I'm selling everything like Dylan has done or Paul Simon or Stevie Nicks or whoever, was not really in the mix. That idea of just...
Exactly.
It just wasn't. It was a different consciousness.
It's a full-time job running a catalogue, and maybe then their next generation doesn't want that.
It doesn't want that, exactly.
It's a big job.
Oh, absolutely.
The clearing of the samples and clearing of the songs for TV and film. I mean, it's you need somebody to manage it. It's a lot. I mean,
especially those kinds of writers.
That's what the publishers do. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Sass, how does an artist or a songwriter get on the radar of Kobalt?
Usually through a manager, a contact, another writer. I mean, we have a lot of our clients, writers, recommending us, which I think is the best way. They'll be in the studio, they'll say, these guys are great, they worked really hard, they've done that. I think that's the best way is when you've been recommended as a company. I always like hearing that because that's for real, and it's. But there's so many different lawyers will tell you about things, or it's amazing. It's just there's a lot, so it's coming from all different places, and it's our job to go through it, listen, make decisions, see the passion, feel there's someone on the team who really wants to go with it, and there's usually a lot of the team. The creative team do deals together. So there might be someone in the UK and someone in the US that will do a deal together. So, and I think that's great.
Oh, yeah.
So, there'd be a team of people maybe from our creative team that, want to bring in a deal, which is really good. And even if people are bringing in individually, they'll always play it to the other members of the team. So that there's, as I explained before, there's a team of people around each writer, not just the one.
Right.
Exactly, which is important.
Absolutely. Sass, you've been in the business for a long time now. Where do you see the future of music publishing heading, not only for Kobalt, but for the industry as a whole?
That's a long-ended question. But I feel like publishing has become more and more important over the years. I've done records and publishing. I prefer publishing because I feel like I like the back room. I like working with the early stages of things or making a difference. And, the release is the last piece of it in a way. The early bit is, as we say, it's making sure, the demos, and then you get to introducing producers. So I feel like publishing's become much more creative than it ever was. And it will continue to do that, especially with, the different ways that people are releasing music these days. They're releasing it themselves. There are obviously the major record companies and great independent record companies that really are working with artists on career paths, So I feel publishing is definitely on the right way. I mean, it's all going ahead with as it ever did, but it's stronger and more necessary. And I feel that artists and writers sort of want to sign earlier. It's a real home.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, Sass, in your career, are there any books or any movies, films that you've seen over the years that you feel have been, I guess, particularly inspirational to you for people who are in the business, that you have found really inspirational to you, professionally speaking?
Well, actually, I just recently watched the Beatles documentary.
Oh, God, wasn't that brilliant?
And I will say that was so inspirational. I think every songwriter
should watch that.
And should watch that because I think it just shows that the talent, the lack of ego, they were on top of their game when that was filmed, and it's very inspirational. It's just, I think I've only watched them all once through, but I'm really looking forward to the second time because I feel like I'll see something else in it. It's probably the best thing I've ever seen because it's the most real thing I've ever seen.
Yes.
Obviously, I've watched documentaries and stuff on lots of artists and writers and enjoyed them. And I think you can get a lot from them, but mainly I think that one recently I'd definitely recommend.
Oh, I'd have to agree with you. I've watched like you, I've been a fan of those kinds of documentaries for years. But the one thing that did brilliantly, which to me as a film lover is very, very, very hard to do, is they captured the creative process well. That's extremely difficult to do well on film. Very difficult. Many people have tried, as you know, but it's not something that you can get like the effect that you had. Wow, inspiration. It's not easy.
No,
I mean, in terms of what he created with that, it's very difficult.
It's amazing the way they, it's all about the instruments and ideas and not being scared of thrashing out your ideas in front of other, writers and members of the band. And it was the imperfections which made it.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. That I was, it's sort of like, it's just good because obviously these days it's like people write to track, people are writing a lot on their own. They're not in especially with the pandemic, we had a lot of sort of writing done over Zoom. We encouraged people to keep doing it, which was difficult for some people. Other people loved it and some were like, can't do it, just don't feel I need to be in the room with people.
Exactly.
But I think it was, and I do think that it's inspirational for young musicians, mostly, guitar players, bass, but, the fact that Ringo was sitting there all the way through it on the drums, fantastic. He wasn't brought in late,
No.
It was just good. The improvisation, the way they could just jam it. And I probably, that's how songs were written. It was much more of a jam.
Much more. And the advantage you have with this particular documentary as a viewer, I mean, especially if you know that work, what those songs that are in their infancy, what they became.
Right.
That's the part that's like, when Paul says, I have this, the long and, playing the piano, the long, like, where do I go from here? And he says that, like, what should the next...
I know, so collaborative.
And you realize what that became but that's the part that's like the creative process, literally as it's happening.
Yeah. No,
see what those songs became, and then you're seeing in the infancy of how that developed.
How it was done. Yeah, it's just brilliant. But
and the lyrics, just singing almost anything, but parts of anything became something.
Yep,
absolutely.
And that's usually how the creative process works. So.
And it was really good. It was just live notes, wasn't it? It was brilliant.
Sass, what advice can you offer our listeners who are wanting to pursue a career as a music publishing executive, such as yourself?
I would say, be around it. Go out, see bands, meet songwriters, live it. Because, I think networking is very important, where you can meet people when you are finding new writers to listen to and champion, so that you've got something to say. Like, you could talk to someone like me and say, I've recently met an amazing songwriter. I think you actually have to be living it before you can actually do it. It's okay on paper to say I want to be a music publisher, but with it's A&R at the end of the day, and you have to you have to have something great that turns people's heads and goes, wow, you know, and you have to be ambitious, and I'd say that really. I mean, I think there's nothing like going out there and seeing live music again. Even for publishers, it's just as important, you know, because we have some amazing artists that write 100% of their songs, like Sam Fender. We have Moses Sumney. We have Father John Misty. I mean, these are career artists that are writing all their own songs. That doesn't mean to say they don't collaborate, but it's, you know, they're still incredible to go and see live as well. So that would be my advice. Live it, get close to it, and show ambition, and don't be scared of your instinct.
Absolutely.
Same question for people who want a career as a professional songwriter, as an artist. What advice would you have for them today?
Again, I think it's a hustle. It's a bit of a hustle early on, let's be honest. And you have to find it within yourself to do that, because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of aspiring songwriters. So I think it's about, getting in the mix, and obviously, you know, hopefully writing the song that people hear and go, oh my God, have you heard that song? It's incredible. But, you know, that gets harder and harder. There does need to be a little bit more of a story. So if you know someone, or you can team up with people, it's better in numbers. It's a lot easier than in isolation. If you've got a team, or you're working with a producer already, or, just find your people and, work it.
Okay.
Sass, where can people best connect with you at Kobalt?
Oh, with myself? Well, they can basically email me.
Okay.
I'm not the quickest, but I do try and get to things. And if I don't, definitely one of the team will listen. Obviously, it's difficult to listen to every single thing, but I try my best.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. I really, really appreciate it. We both do. We really appreciate you doing this.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I am so glad that we got a chance to talk with Sass. This is one of the great creative executives, and one of the most innovative music publishing companies. I mean, they really are at the forefront of a lot of what they do technically. But Sass is somebody who's had you just heard, extensive experience. And I loved when she got into because I always love to try to get from executives like Sass, when they get into the creative reasons of what they're going to sign, but also the creative reasons of what they're not going to sign, and why, and what needs to be present. How she spoke about that whole thing of work ethic and drive, and, you know, not just sitting back and waiting for, you know, the publisher to do everything
right,
for
and not
them.
Wanting it more than they do.
Exactly.
Which is the ongoing theme we see with everybody.
And that is something that a lot of people, people feel. Exactly.
Yeah. And I thought one of the other important points was, and you saw that, and we've seen this a lot with songwriters, where you talk about a Bruno Mars that was writing songs and then became an artist on his own, or a Sia. You're seeing this whole rise of producers becoming recording artists that we discussed, like Benny Blanco and Andrew Watt. And it's just interesting to see how that trend, that started with songwriters, and now it's starting to happen with like producers. So it's very interesting, point that I thought was good.
Absolutely. You know, what a lot of people don't remember, it's funny when you mentioned Bruno Mars, is that the Uptown Funk, that is a record that it's on Mark Ronson's album, on a producer's album. He got Bruno to sing that, but it was on his album. It wasn't something that Bruno generated. It was something that Mark generated and worked extensively on. Getting for that. But, the other interesting thing I thought is, when she spoke about why Kobalt is the choice for artists and for producers and for songwriters. And, this is something that I think for our audience, they really want to know. When you're offered, deals between companies, it really does come down to the people.
Right.
Like people say, what's better, ASCAP or BMI? And a lot of times it's going to be, you're going to make your decision based on the people.
The relationship. And
the relationships that you have. And Sass really stressed that. And I thought that was so important when she talked about the internet. She talked about the team, and from an international basis, so that there really is that kind of family unit. That exists within Kobalt.
Yeah, and if an artist went to any other part of the world where there's a Kobalt office, that they felt like family. And they can plug them into whatever they're doing in those areas.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very, very important selling point. So I was thrilled with the conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Hey Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at mubutv.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show over at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes in our space. You can also find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. This show would not be here if it weren't for our amazing team, which are the following: interview editors Sarah Nissenbaum and Alex Taylor, show notes and transcriptions by Jani Chang, Nicole Capodoglo, Lilia Owens, and Sarah Nissenbaum, theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Insider